Black Magic Woman podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on. We also acknowledge traditional owners of the land where you, the listener or viewer, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to our elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was Aboriginal land and always will be Aboriginal land.
And then she said, no one knows this, but my first child was taken. Like I still get and she told this story, and that was the first time she ever told the story ever about this child, and her other children were growing. And I said, Aunt, I'm going to ring you this week, just check in, make sure you're okay. And she goes, you don't need to, that's yours now. I feel good.
Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mandanara Bales.
Welcome back to another episode of the Black Magic Woman podcast. I'm here on the beautiful lands of the Kulin Nations, and I'm joined by my sister, who we should be introducing you with your title, Commissioner Hunter. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. It's been years in the making. Lots of kind of text messages at conferences, getting on LinkedIn, and then finally we're here. So without further ado, can I get you to introduce yourself to our listeners? But we've got viewers now on YouTube, so thank you for joining us. Yeah, just your name, your mob, and a little bit about where you grew up.
So I am Sue-Ann Hunter, a Wurundjeri, Ngurai, Illum, Wurrung woman, and I should say Wurundjeri, not Wurundjeri because that's lazy.
The white fell away?
Yes, that's the lazy speak. I am a mum of the most gorgeous little girl, Jeddah, who is Wurundjeri and Kalkadoon. And I'm a commissioner at the Yoorrook Justice Commission. I'm a social worker. I just do lots of stuff, but particularly I would say my proudest thing is being an advocate for our kids and the next generation coming through.
And our little people need people like us, especially Black women.
They do, and they need to. I got told something on Saturday. I'd done this course, and then I went back and I did a welcome for those that were doing the next. And this young woman said to me, and I was just so chuffed, like that's the only word I can use. She said, you can't be what you can't see, and I saw you do this course last year, and it inspired me and made me do this course. So, like, how good.
And it's kind of it's like our women that are in community that are actually showing up. If we don't show up, and I always say this to my kids when they say, why do we got to go? Why do you need to go? Mum, can't someone else go? I said, but what if nobody goes? All right, what if there's nobody to replace us? I said, so when Mum's gone, it's because I need to be there. So just trying to tell our kids when we're not at home, because you're a mum, yep. I'm a mum, and trying to be there for other people, especially our community. And we go above and beyond, and we try and give as much as we can.
We do, but I think it's ingrained in us. That's what we're born into, the politics and the nurturing and the caring, and I don't think people understand how much the community give each other.
Yes.
You know, when I went into this role as commissioner, I sat down with my daughter and said, Mum might not be around, and I wasn't sure whether she fully understood it or not. And then she's like, Mum, they need you. Now she says, no, you've got to do that. They need you. Like, it's just this beautiful, I feel like, gift that I've passed on, that you give back to community and you do it. Like, all the women do it, no matter how many kids we have, no matter what jobs we have, and no matter what's going on for us. Sometimes that's where we get our sense of purpose, right?
It's like we drag them kids with us.
Yeah, they have to come.
They have to come. Sister, you're one of 5 commissioners.
Yeah.
And I know that we should be talking a little bit more about maybe your earlier days, because people probably want to know, how did you become a commissioner?
I don't know. No.
So it probably goes back to what you've done in community, right?
Yeah. So I worked roughly probably over 20 years in sort of child and family welfare for VACCA, Victorian Aboriginal Childcare Agency.
Yeah. What would you first start off as?
A caseworker.
Okay.
For out-of-home care, kids in out-of-home care.
So did you go to uni?
No. So that's the thing. I worked. So we won't go earlier than the 20s because I was a bit, we don't need to go there.
Well, I just said that I was naughty.
Yes, I was naughty. And then I realised that I needed...
free-spirited.
Yeah, free-spirited, that's the word.
Let's stick to that.
That's totally it. And I realised I needed to really connect and do something with, you just feel like I was bouncing around from job to job, but I wanted, I don't know, I think we want something more as mob. And so I was like, what's meaningful? Because you can work in companies and do all this other stuff, but someone's earning the money off you, but you're not really contributing much.
It's just a job.
Yeah.
It's a paycheck.
That's right.
And you do it because you need the money.
Yeah, and I left halfway through year 10. And I wanted to study law, but I went and worked as a law clerk, Anyway, then I just sort of lost my way and was just working at jobs and what have you. And then I thought, no, I really want to do something with purpose. And so I went and worked at VACCA. So I was a caseworker, just working with kids in out-of-home care. And then just sort of worked my way through over all this time. But whilst I was doing that, I also studied. And I did that off my own back while working full-time. And I didn't have my daughter then. My daughter's about to turn 14. I probably started schooling once she was born and said, right, I really need qualifications. And it was all coming in then, the qualifications and things like that. So, took myself off to uni and just started learning, which I absolutely love learning, right? And my biggest thing is what you learn, how you pull that apart and apply it for mob, because culture is the foundation of everything you do. And so I loved pulling it all apart.
So you did a social work degree?
I did. I started as doing a psych degree, but I'll just say it, I couldn't get past the stats. I'm not a numbers girl.
Yeah.
So I threw it in, and then I went back and did a grad cert in family therapy. And then that set me up to do a master's. So I did my master's in social work.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing my PhD.
Oh, look out.
Yeah, in cultural safety in primary schools after what I've been through with my daughter and what I went through and what I see other kids go through. So I've just started that sort of my first year of that.
It's never too late.
No, it's never too late.
In terms of studying or even having kids and still trying to do the work in community. And then still try and figure out.
You figure it. You just do it. I think you just do it because I wanted her to see that there's more to life and that you can help mob, and you need an education. Like this day and age, you need that. And I needed to be qualified. I also went and studied at Harvard I did an intensive around trauma therapy.
Wow.
But the kicker is the Harvard course was in Italy, in Orvieto. So I just studied there for a couple of weeks.
Did you literally have to go to Italy?
Yeah.
Stop. I thought you were going to say, because of my daughter, I had to zoom in.
No, my mum looked after her. She was brilliant. So she stood up.
Hello, Mum.
Yeah, thanks, Mum.
Yes.
And so
you had to go to Italy.
Yeah, so a 2-week intensive. Stop. And then a girlfriend come over and this is the only chance, right? We just travelled Italy for 2 weeks.
That's my dream. That's on the bucket list.
I just love it. I just loved it. It was just such a good experience. And I think I love sharing knowledge and learning, and so I'm amazed where I've been taken, like all around Australia, doing conferences and training, and just done lots of things. I just feel really blessed. And I think in my mind, if I don't go through that door and I don't know what's on the other side, just step into it. Yeah. Is my thing. And if you can step into it and make that, even however scary it is, you make it safer for the next blackfellow to walk through, right?
Yeah.
And that's a bit of my motto.
It's like an ethos.
Yeah. And if I don't step into that, if I get the opportunity and don't step into that space to make it even a little bit more safer for somebody, then what am I doing?
Even if you traumatise yourself in the process.
Totally.
That's all right, because you got the skills.
Yeah.
You got the smarts to back it up, lived experience also.
Well, I think we know mob and we know what we bring to the table, and I'm not shy in coming forward.
Yeah.
And so.
And calling shit out.
Yeah, and mob can be shy. And so if you create and, you know, dust off those seats on the table around you and bring them along with you. And so then I went to Snake for a while. I've been on a few boards. And
for listeners that don't know, Snake is a national secretariat for Aboriginal and Islander children.
Yes, so I'm also on that board for a while, and then I worked there for a while. And then I was a bit lost. I was like, what's my next gig? While I was there, I sort of thought, I could do – it felt a bit too easy in saying that.
Love a challenge.
Love a good challenge. And then it came up that we were having this Truth Commission. And someone said to me, Sue-Ann, I'm sure they're going to have a director of social and emotional wellbeing. You should go for it. And I said, hey, hang on, why can't I be a commissioner? And they said, well, you could, but I think that role – so I applied. And you know what I did do? This is the first time I've ever done it. I got a group of women around me that knew their stuff in certain areas, and we all worked together to get me prepped, to get my application in, to get me out back in the media. And it was a group, wasn't just a solo, that helped prep me, got the experts in the area, spoke to other commissioners on other royal commissions, went for the interview. And I remember, I'll never forget this. I was doing some training for Snake and I was in Adelaide, and I booked this accommodation that was just in the middle of nowhere. I didn't even know. And the phone rang and I was checking in, and they said, and I'm just going to the room. And I thought they were ringing to say, look, you were unsuccessful. And I opened the door to the room and it was so smelly and crappy, and this spider walks across the pillow. I'm like, what am I? And then I got told and I cried.
Congratulations.
Yes.
You're in this dingy little motel hotel thing with a spider.
And I'm like, only a black fella, right? Didn't even look for the spider. I was just like, and then I couldn't tell anybody, because it's like you can't tell anybody for about 2 weeks.
Release it.
Yeah. So, and I just remember crying, going, how did a girl that dropped out of Broady Tech get to here? Because I couldn't think of anything more honourable than going around listening to our mob's truth. The good, the bad and the ugly,
Well,
right?
I was going to say, as much as it's like an honour to be that person to hear the truth firsthand, right? In terms of how do you support yourself? Because when I'm listening to some of the stories, and I've been mainly listening to people who are the Commissioner for Police, I've been watching those videos, and then watching, some of the LinkedIn post where Auntie Eleanor there. I've been loving watching art. And just well, first there's this honour of hearing these stories, but then I feel like the weight of some of these stories, and this is our life, right, as black fellas. Yeah. We're always in limbo. One day we're on a high, next minute something's happened. Someone's died, someone's took their life, someone's kids got taken, someone's just been locked up. It doesn't end.
It's never ending. I think the thing is, I've done a lot of therapy courses, again, ripping them apart using culture as a foundation, and I've learnt a lot about me, and I've learnt a lot how to compartmentalise, but also working in the fields with child protection and criminal justice, I've heard a lot and I've seen a lot, and I think that really prepped. And there's not to say things don't some days get under your skin, right?
But this job's not for everyone.
No, I would definitely say that. But in saying that, there's a lot of evidence online that people can go and see. But there's also the closed ones that people will never see, or the ones that people don't want their story shared. It's people's lives and it's heavy stuff. And I'm just going to say it's nothing new we haven't heard as mob, right? My thing is, and I've always been big on, because I look back at things I used to do and holding space for people, I just love it. Like, can you think of anything more being someone sharing so much vulnerability with you to hold space and like you have to truly listen. I don't think I've really listened until I really understood that I'm listening with a purpose, and that is, how do these truths get justice for our people?
Yeah. Just even the setting, how everything's set.
Yeah.
Some of the
coffee,
floor and floor, the room.
Oh, the room. The room's brilliant, right?
On the tables, I'm looking at those fine details.
Yeah, we've got amazing staff that make sure that is reflected in that is a safe space for mob.
Yeah. You can see those little touches. You can see it.
But what you don't see is the cups of coffees out at aunt's place or uncle's place, or sitting in a room somewhere with, you know, holding their hand, crying with them. You know,
we're not seeing any of that. So a lot of those are the closed ones, right?
Yeah, or you'll go out to somebody's house, or you'll be at a round table with a group of mob. And sometimes it's conversations that happen before and after. I've never had so many hugs. I wasn't a hugger. I am the biggest hugger now. Like you would not believe. I've held Arnie's hands and, you know, there's times where you've gone home and cried because you've had to be strong in that space, because you know if you lose it in that moment, they're going to you've all lost it. So, you know, there's been...
Take two, come back another day.
Yeah. But, you know, there's also these stories of amazing strength and resilience.
Can you share some of these, like a story with us, maybe one story that stood out? Is there a story that you can share?
There's probably... there's heaps.
That stood out, that kind of has stuck with you?
There's one that's really stuck with me, really, really stuck with me. And it was we were in a round table. It was an auntie, and she just sat there and listened for a while. And what we did with our round tables was we did the, you know, the drawings of where they do instead of writing words.
Yeah.
So we were doing they were doing the story on a sort of storyboard type thing, and she couldn't really hear. And she just sat there, and, you know, just wise, sitting there listening. And I noticed her because she kept saying, "Oh, can you speak up?" And then she looked up and she saw child protection written on. And then she said, "No one knows this, but my first child was taken. Like, I still get and she told this story, and that was the first time she ever told the story ever about this child. And her other children were growing, but she'd never. And then we went and checked on her. I went and checked on her later, and I said, "Aunt, I'm going to ring you this week. Just check in, make sure you're okay." And she goes, "You don't need to. That's yours now. I feel good."
Oh.
I rang her during the week and she said, "I told you not to ring me. It's yours now." So she felt like this burden was lifted. Like, I just get, or it just hits me every time. And that's just one, right? That's just one. And so there's so many stories of just resilience and triumph and just battle through some of the, you know, I think got it easy. Yeah. I just think, gee, girlfriend, you thought you went through stuff.
Well, in Victoria, it is the state that has the highest representation of Aboriginal children living in out-of-home care.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Aboriginal mothers that don't have their babies.
That's a hell of a lot.
It's a lot of families that are grieving for their babies to be home with us.
Yeah, and it just went up too. The rate just went up.
I've seen it a bit in, like, not in mainstream media. It doesn't get any coverage. Anything that's, you know, got to do with mob, you don't ever hear about it.
No.
Do you know, delivering training to a lot of corporates, and I'm talking about thousands of people every year, about 5 people in the last 5 years, about 5 people knew about the Yoorrook Justice Commission, 5 people. And I'm always surprised, especially when I'm delivering training to Victorians. They've never heard about it.
Yep.
Never knew it existed. So I'm always saying first time. Is it 5 commissioners or 4 out of 5 are First Nations?
4 out of 5.
Is our white fella right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm right.
Well, I will say, so we started off with the original 5. The only of the original 5 are the 3 females. I'd just like to say that.
Represent it. So first time in a truth-telling kind of history globally to have 4 out of 5 commissioners of First Nations.
There's so many firsts in this. So it's the first formal truth-telling body for the state of Victoria. Out of the 5 commissioners, 4 are First Peoples, 3 are traditional owners of this state.
Yeah.
We have Indigenous data sovereignty principles, which guide how the data or which the stories are used. That's never been done in a commission. And we need to understand that we're not truth and healing, or we're not truth and reconciliation. We're truth and justice. And we also, this is how progressive Victoria is, by the way, so-called Victoria, is that we also run alongside the First Peoples Assembly, who are due soon to start negotiating treaty in this state. So what happens with royal commissions is the recommendations or the findings go to government, and that's it, right? So the hope in this one for me is that it's not going to be just sitting on a shelf collecting dust. The hope is, because we're negotiating treaty, they also go to the First Peoples Assembly. So they're able to negotiate our recommendations into treaty.
Because those recommendations, like the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody, basically 30 years, and they say about 5 have been implemented out of 339 in 30 years.
But that's accountability. Who's accountable to that? So my hope, we've got blackfellas on
in the First Peoples Assembly that will be accountable to some degree to push those recommendations.
Well, they'll be watching them. So that makes the state more accountable. The state has not and still isn't accountable for a lot of what it does, right? Who holds the state to account? No one.
And first time in Australian history.
Yeah.
The Ebony Institute, done some research around truth and reconciliation globally, and there are about 72 countries that have gone through a formal truth and reconciliation process in Australia. Up until recently, was yet to do so. So Victoria is leading the way. Now, Queensland, where I live, we've got our Commissioner, Josh Creamer, or Chair.
Chair. You've got 5 commissioners.
5 commissioners, and Josh Creamer is the chair. That kind of was a month ago that was released.
Yeah.
And someone just said to me roughly, it's kind of weak considering or compared to Victoria. And I said, what do you mean? And to deliver training around cultural capability, to understand the current landscape of black politics, if you want to call it that, or Aboriginal issues, I was like under the impression that it was the exact same thing. How could one truth commission be different in one state to the other? So we're talking a bit earlier that the Queensland Truth Inquiry.
Truth and Healing.
It's called Truth and Healing.
Yeah. They're under they're an inquiry, and so I think they have bespoke powers to what they can and can't do. We actually, it's a bit ironic, we come under a royal commission. So we have, if you want to liken to it, we have the powers of Supreme Court judges. So we can compel people that have to come and give evidence. We also have notices to produce. So we will, it's just illegal where we say we want these documents, and so they have to turn them over.
Are you getting those documents?
They were very slow for a while there.
I heard about this.
Well, so we had to hold.
They're overdue.
They were very overdue. So we held, and you can see this on the Yoorrook website. It's like I can't even remember what it's called now, it just went blank, but it's like an administrative sort of hearing where you basically tell them off. So
they get called to the naughty room.
Come to the naughty room and we will tell you off. It's a good way of putting it. So basically, if they don't comply, we can go to the Supreme Court. But they caught up and
they realise there's no running, there's no hiding.
Well, the thing is, you're asking, so you don't get it. So some stuff is retracted, so you don't get it all. There's cabinet in confidence and things like that. But you get documents that say this is why they made a decision, right? And my go-to is when they talk about bail, there was a bail reform, and you see when that happens and the incarceration for the child protection system rises with kids because the law changed, women were overrepresented. So there's more women going into prison in the way. But they knew that if they made these changes to that law, it would adversely affect First Peoples in this state. But they did it anyway.
They did it anyways.
They did it anyway. So you actually find out all this stuff that you were like, well, what are you doing that for? I think one of the things that we really looked at was the accountability piece. So government has lots of frameworks, lots of reports, lots of, this is how we're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. These are our roadmaps. It doesn't matter what they call them. When it comes to the part of assessing them to see if they're and hold themselves accountable, it's never done. I think they've got 72 frameworks, strategies, whatever you want to call them, and majority of them would not have been assessed after a certain period of time. So you don't even know if you're reaching those targets.
So we kind of talk about measuring impact.
Yeah.
So measuring the data.
Yeah, not done.
No.
Well, some of the measurements, because Commissioner Maggie Walter, she's really good. That's sort of where the area she's in. And she says, but how do you measure this? Like, they're these big, will reduce the rate of children in care. Like, how? How will you do that? How are you going to reduce that? Like, there's things, and I think they also have the self-determination framework that they created in collaboration with First Peoples. I'm not sure if there's much self-determination at this point in time.
The data, the statistics.
Yeah, they don't
match up.
No.
Join us next week for part 2 of Mundanara's Yarn with Commissioner Suen Hunter.
If you'd like any more info on today's guest, please visit our show notes in the episode description. A big shout out to all you Deadly Mob and allies who continue to listen, watch and support our podcast. Your feedback means the world. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify, or even head to our socials and YouTube channel and drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. The Black Magic Woman podcast is produced by Clint Curtis.